The studio lights had barely warmed up when the world Ben Shephard knew shifted beneath him. One moment, he was preparing for another smooth broadcast, smiling at the cameras that had become part of his life, and the next, everything felt cold and distant. A phone call, short, clinical, and unforgettable, had arrived just an hour earlier. Ben sat alone in his dressing room, staring at the words scribbled on the doctor's notepad in front of him. Results confirm malignancy. For a man who had held the emotional stories of others with grace and calmed for decades, the weight of his own truth suddenly felt impossible to carry. His eyes welled up, and he leaned forward, elbows on the table, fighting for a breath that refused to come easily. Just outside the room, Annie waited. She had known something was wrong even before he told her he had scheduled tests. Ben had always been strong, but the trembling in his voice that morning had shaken her to her core. When the door finally opened, she stood, heart pounding, bracing herself. Ben didn't need to speak. His eyes, red and filled with a fear she had never seen in him, told her everything. Annie covered her mouth, her vision blurring instantly. "Annie," he managed, his voice fragile, I need you to sit." She did, tears already falling. He sat beside her, taking her hand, and told her the truth as quietly and calmly as he could. Stage 1. Tests. Treatment plans. Unknowns. The entire world seemed to shrink around them until the bustling studio outside no longer existed. Annie broke down first. The woman who had stood beside him through the glittering highs and crushing lows suddenly found herself unable to speak. She pressed her forehead against his shoulder, sobbing as her hand clutched his like a lifeline. "You've carried everyone else for so long. Why did you have to carry this too?" Ben pulled her close, tears slipping from his own eyes now. "I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. We're going to fight this." After a while, silence settled, not empty, but full of unspoken promises. When Annie finally looked up, her expression had changed. The heartbreak was still there, but it was layered with a fierce determination. "We face it together, every step." Ben nodded. They sat like that a long while, two souls holding on to each other as the world spun forward without them. Outside, the crew wondered why Ben was late. None of them could imagine the tidal wave that had just hit him. When he eventually walked onto the set, the cameras caught a presenter who was quieter than usual, whose smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Viewers at home could not have known that behind that poised presence lived a fear that was still settling into his bones. But Annie knew, and when the live show ended, she was waiting for him right in the wings, arms open, eyes shining, ready. That evening, they didn't talk about treatments or doctors or statistics. Instead, they made tea, wrapped themselves in blankets, and sat together while the rain tapped gently on the windows. There was grief in the room, yes, but also something powerful and undefeated. The diagnosis had changed everything in a single hour, but it had not taken away their love, their hope, or their courage. Ben leaned against Annie, eyes closed, listening to the quiet rhythm of the rain. "I'll fight," he said softly. "And I'll be there," she replied. Whatever came next, they would face it side by side.